listening for miles. Listening to Stella by starlight, Stella by rainlight. Driving down the highway, drops pattering, beating time on the windshield. Their own kind of music, their own blue notes, clear as water, jazz notes. Welcome to the latest floating poetry broadcast, and thank you for leaning in to show 115 in my ongoing weekly series, coming to you live again, and now from the freewheeling summer coast of Rhode Island. This is your poet and poetorialist Colin Goedecke, a voice for living our days more fully, more alively, more poetically. In broadcast 114, we took the scenic route, slower and longer, yet far richer, more interesting, enlivening of an experience, choosing it over haste, over expedience, where too much and too often on all the overbeaten paths is sadly missed. This week, we're getting behind the wheel, getting in the driver's seat in many ways, from the actual to the imaginal, to the life-metaphorical, as in your own life and how and where you're steering through it, keeping your eyes on the road, or seeing other ways to view or move along it. So let's shift into a good gear of cultural commentary, poetry, and inquiry together. Let's start with Garrett Hungo's poem, Cruising 99, just the part one. A porphyry of elements. Starting in a long swale between the Sierras and the coast range, starting from ancient tide pools of a Pleistocene sea, starting from exposed granite bedrock, from sandstone and shale, glaciated, river-worn, and scuffed by wind. Tired of the extremes of temperature, the weather's wantonness, starting from the survey of a condor's eye, cutting circles in the sky over Tehachapi and Tejon, starting from lava flow and snow on Shasta, a head of white hair, a garland of tongue-shaped obsidian, starting from the death of the last grizzly, the final conversion of Tulare County to the internal combustion engine, starting from California oak and acorn, scrubgrass, river mist, and lupin in the foothills. From days driving through the outfield clover of Modesto in a borrowed Buick, from nights drinking pitchers of dark in the neon moon bar and grill, from mornings grabbing a lunch pail, work gloves, and a piss-pot hat, from digger pine and Douglas fir and aspen around Placerville, from snow-melt streams slithering into the San Joaquin, from the deltas and levees and floods of the Sacramento, from fall runs of shad, steelhead, and salmon, from a gathering of sand, rock, gypsum, clay, limestone, water, and tar, from a need or desire to throw your money away in the big city, from a melting of history and space in the crucible of an oil-stained hand. Starting from all these, this porphyry of elements, this aggregate of experiences, fused like feldspar and quartz to the azure stone of memory and vision, starting from all of these and an affectionate eye for straight, unending lines, we hit this old road of Highway 99. Thank you, Garrett Hungo, for that. Here's one by Paul Violi, and I'm just realizing for some reason I didn't put on my reading glasses or my driving glasses, which I do actually have for in the rain at dark. I wear those, so I'll get those in a minute after I read you this next piece. It'll give me a moment to fetch them. Paul Violi, Extenuating Circumstances. I didn't know how fast I was going, but even so, that's still an intriguing question, officer, and deserves a thoughtful response. With the radio unfurling Beethoven's Ode to Joy, you might consider anything under 80 sacrilege, particularly on a parkway as lovely as the one you're fortunate enough to patrol, and patrol so diligently. a loveliness that, if observed at an appropriate rate of speed, affords the kind of pleasure which is in itself a reminder of how civilization depends on an assurance of order and measure, and the devotion of someone like yourself to help maintain it. Yes, man the measurer, the incorrigible measurer, and admirably precise measurements they are, not, of course, as an end in themselves, but, lest we forget, as a means to propel us into the immeasurable, where it would be anybody's guess how fast the west wind was blowing when it strummed a rainbow and gave birth to Eros. Never forget that a parkway is a work of art, and the faster one goes, the greater the tribute to its power of inspiration, a lyrical propulsion that approaches the spiritual and demands the more intrepid of us to take it from there. That sense of the illimitable, when we feel we are more than glory, than the jest or riddle of the world, that's what kicked in, albeit briefly, as I approached the Croton Reservoir Bridge. And on a night like this, starlight reignited above a snowfall's last flurry, cockeyed headlights scanning the girders overhead, eggshell snow crust flying off the hood, hatching me on the wing like a song breaking through prose. This kind I usually sing through my nose. So much to love, a bit less to scorn. What have I done? To what end was I born? To teach and delight or offend, luck's been no lady, truth a sneaky friend. Got the heater on full blast, window jammed down, odometer busted, speedometer dead wrong. Can't tell how fast I'm going, don't care how far I've gone. Thank you, Paul Violi. So I'll idle the engine for a moment, get my reading glasses. So wait a moment for me. All right, back to you. so I can see better where I'm going with you. Okay, so the deux chevaux, if you know it, is a classic. It means two horses. Classic old French runabout. And I used to have a blue toy model one in my study years back, sitting on my desk. I don't know where it is now. It's somewhere under the 7 layers of Troy somewhere. On my writing desk, it used to sit, and among other artifacts. And one day it caught my poetic fancy. I wrote this piece called The Mise en Scène at 604, number 6, and that's the co-op I lived in, was number 604. An old deux chevaux Saturday drives down a bamboo road past an antique urn and flowering inkwell, and 2 large lovers kissing into oblivion, heading toward a glowing sea of shells and a seahorse drying in the noonday sun. It passes a yellow sedan, top down, acorn lounging in its blue back seat, a black cat dangling a mouse, and a brass cowbell without a cow, before it disappears without a sound behind a round, gold, wicker mountain. This piece, Esso, if you remember, was the old Exxon. This was written for the father of my California soul brother, Jack Hall, who I was talking about with this very day, a man who loves cars, great cars, and the pure joys of driving. Esso. Fill her up, said the long-legged man with the large red mustache when he pulled up to the shiny pump in his big-finned Pontiac. Always a Pontiac man, only an Esso man. Fill her up, he loved saying those words, being at the wheel of his own urbane, suburban life, inside the sealed envelope of his 1950s, 60s self. As peak-capped men filled the yawning tank and nimbly washed the Scarsdale-wide windshield, his wife beside and tow-headed children behind, waiting patiently to drive on. Esso. Here's a poem from Owl's Head, Maine, 2021, June. Maritime energy. I fill my car, my chariot, the seahorse, and the sails of myself with maritime energy, with main sea, wind, and marine air energy, with the sure purity of this place that invited but never expected flows fluidly into my body, into my consciousness, through every portal, every porthole, whenever I chance to appear, to open and receive here. Where does your energy come from? Where do you fill yourself back up? Carolina Journal by Nicole Pekarsky. Smoke trees line the roadside, still bare beech and poplar, bouqueted with redbud and something rusty I can't name, marches odd autumnals. One church towns I'm glad not to be from, split log strip mall with a porch where Claire's Beauty Shop shares a sign with, quote, antiques, where you study grace in magazines, and when Dad dies you rename the family diner. New York, New York. Love is a means of travel, so you dye the linens pink and swanfold napkins, holding peony in your mouth. Sundays drive out to watch the ferry drag its lace. Coastward, Easter-colored clapboard, the last generation's shanties hovering on narrow stilts above the velour drift of tide plane, mink from a distance, muskrat up close. A drowsy instrumental music, flooded at dusk. Beside the bridge, smooth brow of pewter, island of saplings blackened like a framed-up house. Carolina Journal. Thank you, Nicole Pekarsky. Here's a quote from Henry David Thoreau. In our most trivial walks, we are constantly, though unconsciously, steering like pilots by certain well-known beacons and headlands, and if we go beyond our usual course, we still carry in our minds the bearing of some neighboring cape, and not till we are completely lost or turned round, for a man needs only to be turned round once with his eyes shut in this world to be lost, do we appreciate the vastness and strangeness of nature. Thank you. Thank you, Thoreau, for that. From the Marginalian, Bicycling for Ladies, an illustrated 1896 manifesto for the universal splendors of the bicycle as an instrument of self-reliance, a training machine for living with uncertainty, and a portal to joy. Says the writer Maria Ward, you are at all times independent. Well, as the Marginalian says here, but with the bicycle, for the first time in the history of our species, human beings could traverse land faster than on foot, beholden to no other creature and relying only on the internal combustion of their own metabolism, propelled only by where they wanted to go and how hard they were willing to push to get there. In this glorious prosthetic stride, a two-wheel allegory for life itself. Within a century, the bicycle would come to be regarded as, quote, the vehicle of novelists and poets. Bicycling, says the author in this book, combines the best features of many other sports with advantages peculiar to it. For instance, the cyclist must work, and there is much pleasure in watching progress made with so little effort, the work all his own, the machine but a means of locomotion, enjoying and appreciating all the beauties of the country traversed, while yet conscious of the power to hasten away as soon as the surroundings cease to interest or amuse. Unless a breakdown occurs, you are at all times independent. This absolute freedom of the cyclist can be known only to the initiated. Thank you, M.E. Ward. And it's a fun read. Good read. Ian Fleming, author of the James Bond stories. Listen to this one. He wrote at one point, women are often meticulous and safe drivers, but they are very seldom first class. In general, James Bond, regarded them as a mild hazard, and he always gave them plenty of road and was ready for the unpredictable. 4 women in a car he regarded as the highest potential danger, and 2 women nearly as lethal. Women together cannot keep silent in a car, and when women talk, they have to look into each other's faces. An exchange of words is not enough. They have to see the other person's expression, perhaps to read behind the other's words or analyze the reaction to their own. So 2 women in a front seat of a car constantly distract each other's attention from the road ahead, and 4 women are more than doubly dangerous, for the driver not only has to hear and see what her companion is saying, but also, for women are like that, what the 2 behind are talking about. Well, no, think about that. I never thought about such a thing. In an essay about California's freeway system in her 1979 collection, The White Album, Joan Didion writes this: "The freeway system is the only secular communion Los Angeles has. Mere driving on the freeway is in no way the same as participating in it. Anyone can, quote, drive on the freeway, and many people with no vocation for it do, hesitating here and resisting there, losing the rhythm of the lane change, thinking about where they came from and where they are going. Actual participants think only about where they are. Actual participation requires a total surrender, a concentration so intense as to seem a kind of narcosis, a rapture of the freeway. The mind goes clean. The rhythm takes over. A distortion of time occurs, the same distortion that characterizes the instant before an accident." Thank you, Joan Didion. And John Steinbeck, it's from one of his stories. I'm not sure which one this came from. Man on a tractor, a twitch at the controls could swerve the cat, but the driver's hands could not twitch because that monster that built the tractor, the monster that sent the tractor out, had somehow got into the driver's hands, into his brain and muscle, had goggled him and muzzled him, goggled his mind, muzzled his speech, goggled his perception, muzzled his protest. He could not see the land as it was. He could not smell the land as it smelled. His feet did not stamp the clods or feel the warmth and power of the earth. He sat in an iron seat and stepped on iron pedals. He could not cheer or beat or curse or encourage the extension of his power. And because of this, he could not cheer or whip or curse or encourage himself. He did not know or own or trust or beseech the land. If a seed did not germinate, it was nothing. If the young thrusting plant withered in drought or drowned in a flood of rain, it was no more to the driver than to the tractor. Thank you, John Steinbeck. Well, I was curious, as you might be, about the origin of steering wheels, and I found this in thenewswheel.com. Believe it or not, the very first cars that were made weren't driven with a steering wheel, but rather with something called a tiller. The first steering wheel didn't get used until about a decade after the first automobile was even patented. As dry as the subject matter may initially seem, the history of steering wheels is actually quite interesting. Early stages. The earliest known use of a steering wheel can be traced back to 1894 when Alfred Vacheron used one on his custom 4-horsepower Panhard to participate in the Paris-Rouen race. But not until 1898 was it that steering wheels were introduced as a standard feature in some cars. By 1904, all Rambler models, one of the first mass-produced cars at the time, came with a steering wheel, and the tiller had been all but eradicated for within a decade. So there you have that. There you have that. Well, how about the way driving a car can be like driving a time machine? Here's Gregory Janakian's poem, Going Back. We have been cruising half a block at a time, my wife, my 2 children, all morning, and I've been pointing out unhurriedly and with some feeling places of consequence, sacred places, backyards, lush fields, garages, alleyways. There, I say, by this big cottonwood, that's where I dropped the flyball, 1959. And in 1961, I say, at this very corner, Barry Sapolsky tripped me up with his gym bag. My son has fallen asleep, my daughter has been nodding, yes, indiscriminately for the last half hour, and my wife has the frozen, wide-eyed look of the undead. Maybe lunch, I say, though I'm making now my 4th approach to Curtin Junior High School, yellow-bricked, large-windowed, Gothic, where Frank Marone preyed on our terror once and Janice Lehman walked in beauty. Salute, everyone, I say. Salute, bringing my hand up to my brow as we pass the gilded entrance. This is where things of importance happened. And I am pulling out from under the car seat a photo album of old school pictures. Page 8, I say. Fred Decker, John Carlson by the bike rack, Mr. Burkett. and driving on, following the invisible map before my eyes. Now we're drifting toward my boyhood house, and I am showing my wife trellis porches, bike routes, more than she'd cared to see. Why this longing, she says. What about now? The kids, our lives together, lunch, me. I give her a curse and a kiss and turn right on Cherry, and there in front of our eyes, barely changed, is the house where all my memories converge. Look at the windows of my room, I say. See there, the shadowy figure moving behind them. And before anyone can hope to answer, I've grabbed my camera. I'm snapping pictures through the windshield. Bricks, dormers, railings, fences, streets, all are falling thrall to my aim. We could be happy here, I say, putting another roll of film in and beginning to nose my car toward Bill Corson's house. Really, Daddy, my daughter says. No chance, my wife tacks on, but all I'm hearing is the crack of bats in the neighborhood lot and Danny's pearl-handled cap gun going off and the drone of bees around honeysuckle and Dewey Wall's gravelly voice urging on his mower, and the sound of wind in the cottonwoods is like water. I am coasting. There's time for everything. Thank you, Gregory Janakian. Okay, are you ready for some questions about taking the wheel? Your wheel. Literal ones you find yourselves at, like our man just now. And the figurative ones, or one actually, that you're behind each day, each night, every moment you're alive, whether you're awake or asleep. All right then. What are the best things that have ever happened to you when you've been at the wheel? What's the craziest thing that ever happened? Do you feel in the driver's seat of your life right now? If not, what's keeping you from getting behind it, behind that wheel? Is it time for you to shift gears, up or down, emotionally, professionally, or in some other way or part of your world, of your life? What's your driving force, if you could put it into words? And how different is it, if it is, now compared to years or decades ago? What great life desires are you steering toward right now, or want to? Are you following your own roadmap, or someone else's? Or going wherever the Spirit takes you? Indian Summer by Diane Glancy. There's a farm auction up the road. Wind has its bid in for the leaves. Already bugs flurry the headlights between cornfields at night. If this world were permanent, I could dance full as the squaw dress on the clothesline. I would not see winter in the square of white yard light on the wall. But something tugs at me. The world is at a loss, and I am part of it, migrating daily. Everything is up for grabs, like a box of farm tools broken open. I hear the spirits often in the garden and along the shore of corn. I know this place is not mine. I hear them up the road again. This world is a horizon, an open sea. Behind the house, the white iceberg of the barn. Thank you, Diane Glancy. Slow Dancing on the Highway, The Trip North by Elizabeth Hobbs. You follow close behind me for 1,000 miles, responsive to my movements. I signal, you signal back. We will meet at the next exit. You blow kisses, which I return. You mouth, I love you, a message for my rear view mirror. We do a slow tango as we change lanes in tandem, gracefully, as though music were guiding us. It is tighter than bodies locked in heat, this caring, this ardent watching. Thank you, Elizabeth Hobbs. Here's the sea green roadster that roared on the note of mobily romantic things. Here's one of mine from Bridgehampton, May 2001, Bridgehampton, New York. It's for Allison Lastly. I run an eager hand along a sinuous thigh where she lies, waiting, silky and sexy. Soon we slide together like fingers in a glove onto the low-slung seats and rouse the engine to a tiger's roar, then ease her out into the crisp night air, crunching the courtyard gravel. You shift into first and take us away, around and down the owl-dark drive, gliding under glassy stars, and below the outstretched arms of towering trees. Carry and grace to catch a thief, racing along your seaside corniche, feeling electric and alive, loving the sudden, secret romance of it all. Well, I have a few driving memories and stories beyond that of my own. One from very early childhood, sitting in my father's lap in the driver's seat of an old sedan where we went for a drive, and he let me hold the wheel as if I was driving, and I could see the road flying by underneath through a rusted hole in the floorboard. It was all so exciting. This small me and this big machine that I felt I was commanding, and that dizzying sense of speed. That's one. There's another from later boyhood, was sitting solo and without anybody knowing behind the wheel of a vintage 1930s Jaguar my grown sister and her bohemian boyfriend owned and brought along when they would visit my family's house. It was one with the big silver out-mounted headlights. I loved the look and feel and scent of it, and those well-worn red leather seats. But I was especially fascinated by the small blue bulb that lit up when I turned the ignition key. And my father told me a story I never forgot about a chap he knew back in his younger days, or his business days in New York, before I appeared in the world. And he knew this wealthy ad executive, one of the madmen of the day, Madison Avenue men, and who would drive from somewhere in Long Island in the summer in his convertible top down with a martini, obviously a drinker, and he'd be flying along in the car with the martini, hand on the wheel on one left side and the martini in the right. And if he thought the police were coming, he'd fling the glass out to the side of the road and carry on. So all those stories came up for me, and as I was curating things for us. And one last one is, which I loved, was the story my Uncle Hugh, my Uncle Hugo, would tell about his father, my grandfather, who grew up driving before stop signs. So he would never really see them. They were invisible, and he would never stop at them. He would just fly into intersections, sometimes safely, sometimes not safely. Well, I heard that he went through a lot of Fords. Smashed a lot of them up, but amazingly never got terribly hurt. Though my uncle would wince and close his eyes and say a prayer every time they approached those signs. Well, my suggestion is to stop. Don't behave like my grandfather. That would not be wise. Here's The Forge by George Bilger. I remember watching my father stop halfway up the driveway because my tricycle was blocking the way to the garage, and how he solved the problem by picking up the tricycle by the handlebars and smashing it through the windshield of our brand new family station wagon, his face red with scotch, his black tie and jacket flapping with effort, the tricycle making its way a little farther with each blow into the roomy interior of the latest model as the safety glass relented. The tricycle and the windshield both praiseworthy in their toughness, the struggle between them somehow making perfect sense in midday on our quiet suburban street. The windshield, the anvil, the trike, the hammer, the marriage, the forge, and failure glowing in the heat, beaten and tempered, slowly taking shape. Thank you, George Bilger. Night Drive by J. Allen Rosser. Road light licks the night ahead, licks the white line on night's new hide, licks the undulating blacktop flat, sticks its endless forking tongue out onward, flicks itself at culvert, tree, passing truck, a sign insisting heartbeats equal conscious life, it may be, of someone's, maybe my, forever unborn child. I let the knife of wind inside and sing a whiter shade of pale, no earthly reason why, and think of what won't be and who, and whether it be speed, wind, song, or my mind's roar that drowns for once time's slangy whine. Here comes hope to climb clear of before. Stillborn hope with desperate moral reflex. Undead grip climbs right back up my neck, raising each pointless residual nape hair in ancestral salute to an absence, to the air that won't question itself, won't ever check the moral rear view. I accelerate gamely, wondering what makes me want to leave each person, place, and thing I learned to love. What shoves me off again, racing insanely, as if to the place that will always save a place for me, a room that will contain the kind of people who'd embrace the things I'm still afraid to face. Thank you, J. Allen Rosser. Well, I have one by Richard Blanco. We might have time to share it with you. It's a good one. I like it. I thought it was very fitting. It's Richard Blanco's poem, Photo of a Man on Sunset Drive, 1914. At the groundbreaking ceremony city of South Miami, Sunset Drive improvements. And so it began. The earth torn, split open by a dirt road cutting through palmettos and wild tamarind trees defending the land against the sun. Beside the road, a shack leaning into the wind. On the wooden porch, crates of avocados and limes, white chickens pecking at the floorboards, and a man under the shadow of his straw hat, staring into the camera in 1914. He doesn't know within a lifetime the unclaimed land behind him will be cleared of scrub and sawgrass. The soil will be turned, made to give back what the farmers wish. Their lonely houses will stand acres apart from one another, jailed behind the boughs of their orchards. He'll never buy sugar at the general store, mail love letters at the post office, or take a train at the depot of the town that will rise out of 100 million years of coral rock on promises of paradise. He'll never ride a Model T puttering down the dirt road that will be paved over, stretch farther and farther west into the horizon, reaching for the setting sun, after which it will be named. He can't even begin to imagine the shadows of buildings rising taller than the palm trees, the street lights glowing like counterfeit stars dotting the sky above the road, the thousands who will take the road every day, who will also call this place home less than 100 years after the photograph of him hanging today, and City Hall as testament. He'll never meet me, the engineer hired to transform the road again, bring back tree shadows and bird songs, build another promise of another paradise meant to last another forever. He'll never see me, the poet, standing before him, trying to read his mind across time, wondering if he was thinking what I'm today. Both of us looking down the road that will stretch on for years after I, too, disappear into a photo. Thank you, Richard Blanco. Once Driving West of Billings, Montana is a poem by a poet new to me that I found fascinating, especially the finish of it. Susan Mitchell, this poem. I ran into the afterlife. No fluffy white clouds, not even stars, only sky dark as the inside of a movie theater at 3 p.m. and getting bigger all the time, expanding at terrific speed over the car which was disappearing, flattening out empty as the fields on either side. It was impossible to think under that rain louder than engines. I turned off the radio to listen, let my head fill up until every bone was vibrating. Sky. Twice, trees of lightning broke out of the asphalt. I could smell the highway burning. Long after, saw blue smoke twirling behind the eyeballs, lariats doing fancy rope tricks, jerking silver dollars out of the air, along with billiard cues, 9 pins. I was starting to feel I could drive forever, when suddenly one of those trees was right in front of me. Of course, I hit it. Branches shooting stars down the windshield, poor car shaking like a dazed cow. I thought this time for sure I was dead, so whatever was on the other side had to be eternity. Saw sky enormous as nowhere. Kept on driving. Thank you, Susan Mitchell. How about this one? Jane Mead's poem, Passing a Truck Full of Chickens at Night on Highway 80. What struck me first was their panic. Some were pulled by the wind from moving to the ends of the stacked cages. Some had their heads blown through the bars and could not get them in again. Some hung there like that, dead, their own feathers blowing, clotting in their faces. Then I saw the one that made me slow some. I lingered there beside her for 5 miles. She had pushed her head through the space between bars to get a better view. She had the look of a dog in the back of a pickup, that eager look of a dog who knows she's being taken along. She craned her neck. She looked around, watched me, then strained to see over the car, strained to see what happened beyond. That is the chicken I want to be. Thank you, Jane Mead. Here's Driving to the Moon is an autumn sonata poem of mine, a lunar poem, I guess we could say, where I let my imagination take the wheel. Driving to the moon on a deep indigo end of November night, as it hangs so low and clear over the near bare treetops, over the dark road perforated with white, seeming to drive closer, though knowing there's no closer to get to the half-seen lower or half-suggested upper reaches of the black and blue-white lunar wonder, however fast the speed of my motor or sight, except the fancy of pulling my chariot up to park by a lake-like crater where I lean and look back at the sapphire and emerald-swirled earth through the lens of my clear rear-view mirror. So, have a drive to the moon sometime. It's great fun. And how about this for your drive around the equator? One sultry July years ago, I came the idea of doing that and what it might be like and what you'd need to have. Distance 24,901 miles, with stops for gas, typhoons, doldrums. Average temperature 86 degrees, hotter when volcanoes are erupting. Humidity 86%, often rainy. Anacondas, poison dart frogs, tigers, tarantulas, giant centipedes, giant waterfalls, wild orchids, and Amorphophallus titanum, the world's largest and most immodest flower. What you'll need: sunblock, sunglasses, a straw hat, bug spray, more bug spray, binoculars, bottled water, AC, an umbrella, plenty of sandwiches, and plenty of savoir-faire. Here's Lawrence Ferlinghetti's poem from his collection of Far Rockaway of the Heart. Wonderful, wonderful collection, and I find this so simply and beautifully loving and grateful in its way. Driving a cardboard automobile without a license at the turn of the century, my father ran into my mother on a fun ride at Coney Island, having spied each other eating in a French boarding house nearby, and having decided right there and then that she was right for him entirely. He followed her into the playland of that evening, where the headlong meeting of their ephemeral flesh on wheels hurtled them forever together. And now, in the back seat of their eternity, reaching out to embrace them. Thank you, Ferlinghetti. James Hillman. Each morning, we return from the dream soul, trying to adjust to the day world, that moment when the two souls exchange places in the driver's seat. What do you think about that thought, dear listeners? I'm still musing on it. I came across this quote from Mary Oliver and felt it fitting as I thought about pointing ourselves and purposing ourselves into vital openings of our beings. This is from New and Selected Poems. I tell you this to break your heart, by which I mean only that it break open and never close again to the rest of the world. Well, likewise here as I put things together for us about freewheeling, accent on free and in relation to Independence Day, which we just had here in the United States, and other life meanings around that, especially our freedom to think, to speak, to choose how we travel and steer through our lives. Declaring your independence. On this day, when we mark with fireworks and picnics the country becoming wholly self-governing, maybe it's a day, an opportunity to affirm or ascend to our own free-handedness, our fullest independence of thought, of action, of way of living, being in the world, the right to freely choose our own way, to naturally express our own feelings among our own people, all people, without fanfare or fear of their histrionics, censorings, or polemics, maybe declaring this self-rule, giving up beholdenness to anything or anyone that keeps us from growing, keeps us from rising, including allegiance to old beliefs, unserving loyalties, and giving ourselves these vital, radial liberties takes equal braveness and even greater precedence. I found this note from the universe from 2017 in my mix of things, and here's what the universe had to say back then. When driving down the road of life, rarely do you know how good you have it until you see it in the rearview mirror, which is not to suggest that you should look back now, but to remind you that where you are today is more awesome and amazing than you probably realize. Thank you, universe. That's from TUT.com. Well, what say you to some joyriding? Here we go, joyriding. Not the reckless kind, or involving anything high speed, or stolen. Rather the ride your heart takes you on when you fly through the clouds or down the roads of new love or newly discovered passions, inspirations. Rides that, however long or short, are fully and wildly joyful. Take you to places of great aliveness. Require no permits or permissions, no brakes or blinkers. Only your willingness to go along. Only your allowing of all the joy to rush through and around you. Be a free and full-on joyrider. Route 66, written from my longtime friend Tom Daly on his then 66th birthday in 2017, but maybe apropos of many of you, many of us in ways. Route 66, the one that runs through a long, colorful stretch of your living and loving, from the day you landed here on Earth to this sunshine 66th year of your birth. From times of flying along with a foot on the gas, getting such kicks, to times applying the brakes. Mostly, though, now, with the windows of your heart rolled down, hands happily on the wheel as you breeze through the daily landscape. A morning poem from David White, who said the moment of waking is an incredible opportunity and it's quite a tragedy if you go straight to your to-do list. It's called What to Remember When Waking. In that first, hardly noticed moment in which you wake, coming back to this life from the other, more secret, movable, and frighteningly honest world where everything began, there's a small opening into the new day, which closes the moment you begin your plans. What you can plan is too small for you to live. What you can live wholeheartedly will make plans enough for the vitality hidden in your sleep. To be human is to become visible while carrying what is hidden as a gift to others. To remember the other world in this world is to live in your true inheritance. You are not a troubled guest on this earth. You're not an accident amidst other accidents. You were invited from another and greater night than the one from which you have just emerged. Now, looking through the slanting light of the morning window toward the mountain presence of everything that can be, what urgency calls you to your one love? What shape waits in the seed of you to grow and spread its branches against a future sky? Is it waiting in the fertile sea, in the trees beyond the house, in the life you can imagine for yourself, in the open and lovely white page on the writing desk? Thank you, David White. Thank you. A Map to the Next World by Joy Harjo. In the last days of the fourth world, I wished to make a map for those who would climb through the hole in the sky. My only tools were the desires of humans as they emerged from the killing fields, from the bedrooms and the kitchens. For the soul is a wanderer with many hands and feet. The map must be of sand and can't be read by ordinary light. It must carry fire to the next tribal town for renewal of spirit. In the legend are instructions in the language of the land. How it was we forgot to acknowledge the gift, as if we were not in it or of it. Take note of the proliferation of supermarkets and malls, the altars of money. They best describe the detour from grace. Keep track of the errors of our forgetfulness. The fog steals our children while we sleep. Flowers of rage spring up in the depression. Monsters are born there of nuclear anger. Trees of ashes wave goodbye to goodbye, and the map appears to disappear. We no longer know the names of the birds here, how to speak to them by their personal names. Once we knew everything in this lush promise. What I'm telling you is real and printed in a warning on the map. Our forgetfulness stalks us, walks the earth behind us, leaving a trail of paper, diapers, needles, and wasted blood. An imperfect map will have to do, little one. The place of entry is the sea of your mother's blood, your father's small death, as he longs to know himself in another. There is no exit. The map can be interpreted through the wall of the intestine, a spiral on the road of knowledge. You will travel through the membrane of death, smell cooking from the encampment where our relatives made a feast of fresh deer meat and corn soup in the Milky Way. They have never left us. We abandoned them for science. And when you take your next breath, as we enter the fifth world, there will be no X, no guidebook with words you can carry. You will have to navigate by your mother's voice, renew the song she is singing. Fresh courage glimmers from planets and lights the map, printed with the blood of history, a map you will have to know by your intention, by the language of suns. When you emerge, note the tracks of the monster slayers where they entered the cities of artificial light and killed what was killing us. You will see red cliffs. They are the heart, contain the ladder. A white deer will greet you when the last human climbs from the destruction. Remember the hole of shame making the act of abandoning our tribal grounds. Yet the journey we make together is perfect on this earth, who was once a star and made the same mistakes as humans. We might make them again, she said. Crucial to finding the way is this: there is no beginning or end. You must make your own map. Thank you, Joy Harjo. So we're coming into our last things now together for now, and so much of our ability in my mind and heart to drive literally and figuratively from a car to a life hinges on how well we can see. Speaking earlier, of course, my glasses, and as we come to the end of our time this week, seeing clearly, without blinders or blindfolds, illusion or confusion, looking consciously wide openly, without looking away, seeing straight to the bottom of the waters, of yourself, of others, of everything before you, all things below, above, and around your mind, your heart, your present moment, your future. And in that clear blue sky seeing, you find that your choosing, your living, your loving becomes so natural. Moving wisely through your days, engaging the world confidently, becomes usual. And the beauty, the pure joy of being your own person, a one and only man or woman, in the mirror and in the eyes of those you know, comes often and easily, so affirmingly. When you're open, able, committed, no matter what or where it leads, to see everything clearly. Charles Bukowski's poem, Mind and Heart. Unaccountably, we are alone, forever alone, and it was meant to be that way. It was never meant to be any other way. And when the death struggle begins, the last thing I wish to see is a ring of human faces hovering over me. Better, just my old friends, the walls of myself. Let only them be there. I've been alone, but seldom lonely. I've satisfied my thirst at the well of myself, and that wine was good, the best I ever had. And tonight, sitting, staring into the dark, I now finally understand the dark and the light and everything in between. Peace of mind and heart arrives when we accept what is. Having been born into this strange life, we must accept the wasted gamble of our days and take some satisfaction in the pleasure of leaving it all behind. Cry not for me, grieve not for me. Read what I've written, then forget it all. Drink from the well of yourself and begin again. Thank you, Charles Bukowski, for that. Let us drink from that well. And last, for now, wherever your road finds you. Wherever your road finds you right now, from all the places your life has traveled, your body and spirit sailing along with it, through thousands of miles of cities, towns, moments, and memories, to wherever it's taking you next, whatever wonders and discoverings it's leading you to next, as long as you keep your hands easy on the wheel and your eyes and heart wide, wide open on the way. Thank you, each and all again, for leaning in, listening and feeling in, and also for sharing these shows with others and commenting back. If you'd like to offer a thought, compliment, or question, send a note. My email is colin@thepoetorialist.com. To express your thanks with a donation, I would welcome that. You can contribute any amount by Venmo to Fivefold, FIVEFOLD, at pipeline.com, or by PayPal, or directly through my site, thepoetorialist.com, in the Donate tab, or by mail to me at P.O. Box 1032 Westerly, Rhode Island, 02891. Patrons can also at times host me as a working artist, a poet in residence on a given property for a given time, later this summer, autumn, or winter, to create a new flight of poetic art dedicated to them. Email me to discuss the possibilities, and I can also serve as a virtual artist in residence, a poetic presence for an online community. Meanwhile, you can hear all the broadcasts online on YouTube on the Floating Poetry playlist. I hope you'll lean in soon again. Until then, dear listeners, enjoy and appreciate and take all care being at the wheel as you motor or sail or cycle about, and steer well and wisely as you travel along through your days, as you journey through your one vital, beautiful, and irreplaceable life. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.